Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. It's my pleasure as the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, Built Environment and Information Technology, Wynand Steyn, to have a very special word of welcome to you tonight. Firstly, our Vice Principal, Research, Innovation and Postgraduate Education, Prof Hanlie Smuts, all of the other deans, deputy deans, fellows of heads of departments, academic, professional staff, and very importantly, also on an evening like tonight, a lot of our industry colleagues. And for some of the industry colleagues, it's not only industry colleagues, some of them are students also, and some of them are alumni. So it's really a great pleasure to have you here tonight. We appreciate your time. And then the family of Prof Smuts, the ones that's physically here and the ones that will later on have a look at this, it's always a proud moment. Welcome to you. We hope you enjoy it with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your time tonight. The title of Prof Hanlie Smuts' inaugural lecture is Crossing Boundaries and Crafting Futures, the role of industry partnerships in transdisciplinary research. It's my pleasure to now ask Prof Sunil to come to the podium and formally open and welcome Prof Hanlie to start with their lecture. Thank you, Prof.
Professor Hanlie Smuts and husband Andre, most welcome. I'd also like to extend welcome to son Stefan and wife Sulet. Thank you very much for making time to be here. And of course, we miss the daughter Cordelia. Like Prof Steyn said, you can watch it non-real time. And then of course, Professor Wynand Steyn, the Dean of the Faculty. Our Deputy Deans are here tonight, Professor Alta van der Merwe and Professor James Mena. Our heads of schools, heads of department, members of the University Executive and Management, of course, industry and faculty colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. As Professor Steyn indicated, we really thank the industry colleagues for joining us. I think the topic is apt and relevant, and I'm sure you'll find some benefit in it. On behalf of the University of Pretoria, it's a warm welcome to each and every one of you, and wonderful for you to make it on this Thursday evening. An inaugural address by one of our professors is always something to look forward to. It is an opportunity for us to recognize a colleague having progressed to the highest academic rank of professorship. Also, an inaugural address is a chance to hear from someone at the cutting edge of their discipline about the research field that they are involved in, often even before that research has been published. As someone with strong ties to the Faculty of Engineering, Built Environment, IT, I think it's a pleasure to officiate at this particular event. As our most highly esteemed faculty members and experts in the field, our corps of professors, of course, are a vital link for enabling the manifestation of the university's ideals as they are captured in our vision statement through teaching and learning and research within the academic departments. They also drive our engagement with the external environment through collaboration with their peers, both locally and globally, but also with government and industry partners. While there is a large area of shared interest between universities and the private industry, in certain respects they operate from different paradigms. Ensuring effective and of course mutually beneficial collaboration between academia and industry partners is a challenge at times because we all have our different pressing needs. We are privileged at the University of Pretoria to have scholars such as Professor Smuts, who has extensive experience of such partnerships, coupled with academic curiosity required to get to the bottom of what makes them work. Professor Smuts, the title of your address this evening, namely Crossing Boundaries and Crafting Futures, is an evocative one, speaking directly to the complex reality we find ourselves as a university and the forward-looking contribution we would like to make in the world. We like to refer to the University of Pretoria as a future-focused university, and it is a priority for us to ensure that our students are ready for the future of work for example. However, in a rapidly changing world, the future is sometimes an elusive concept. I was impressed by how successfully you addressed both the need for transdisciplinary research and for addressing complex global problems and the challenges we face when engaging in such research. These are issues that we also grapple with at the institutional level as we strive to position ourselves as a research-intensive university, known among other things for making a difference both locally and globally. Dear guests, I believe you will agree with me that we have every reason to look forward to Professor Smuts' address this evening. I, for one, am excited to hear her speak about her framework for empowering researchers and industry partners with a view to harnessing the full potential of transdisciplinary research so as to create a more sustainable and, of course, inclusive future. As you know, that Professor Smuts is always inspired by trying to make a difference in society and, of course, sustainability, especially as she calls it digital decarbonization, is something she is passionate about, as the future of our planet is something we all should be concerned about. Before we hear Professor Smuts speak, however, it is my pleasure to introduce her to you. With a passion for business transformation, knowledge management, and behavioral change management, Professor Smuts' career has focused on business performance improvement and operating model optimization in the information, communication, and technology or ICT sector. Her role has been dedicated to driving through personalized digital offerings and services. By understanding digital and adjacent ecosystems, she has championed the digital transformation of traditional business models. At the University of Pretoria, her teaching and research focus on information technology and its organizational impact. She has built strong industry relationships to ensure graduates are work ready. Her academic work includes developing curricula that integrate practical industry skills with, of course, theoretical knowledge, and supervising postgrad research that explores the latest trends and innovations in IT and, of course, digital transformation. Throughout her career in both corporate environments and academia, she has been a facilitator, learner, knowledge sharer, coach, and mentor. She believes in grooming young leaders to be critical and innovative thinkers, curious by nature, and methodical by chance. She also enjoys the craftsmanship of writing and holds a C2 NRF or National Research Foundation rating, and has published several academic and popular press papers, as well as book chapters in her research fields, namely artificial intelligence for knowledge management for development, big data management, enterprise architecture, digital transformation, and more recently, Society 5.0. She is a sought-after speaker, sharing her expertise at various guest lectures, conferences, events, and societies, and enjoys writing both technical papers and also for science communication, such as popular articles for the general public. She says she loves to crochet. I'm not sure how she gets the time to do that, because I can tell you, I'll send her an email at odd hours of the night, and guess what? She will respond at some crazy hour. Professor Hanlie Smuts is the head of Department of Informatics and the chair of the School of Information Technology at the University of Pretoria. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Professor Hanlie Smuts to the podium.
Thank you so much. Prof Sunil, Prof Wynand, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening from my side. It is wonderful to be here this evening. It's a privilege and an honor to have family here, friends, colleagues, and industry partners. Some of the co-authors of the papers that I'm going to share with you this evening are actually in the audience, which is our industry partners, and it is a real privilege that you are here this evening to also a look at, or to see the outcome of crossing boundaries and crafting futures, and how we apply our collaboration in terms of academic research. Now, the process of preparing for this event this evening, the past few weeks was a period of reflection, and we don't often have time to do that. But it was a period of reflection that I experienced extremely positive, because thinking about my career in industry and the 7 years that I've now been here at the university really formed the way that I was thinking and that I'm thinking about research. So reflecting on my journey from working in the telecommunication industry to the University of Pretoria already is crossing a boundary. And crafting futures speak to the new knowledge that is created through research, but also through considering different approaches and outputs in collaboration with our industry partners to deliver a better future and have a focus on a better future. So the period of reflection was really about whether I was challenging myself, whether I was busy designing a product for the mass market in Africa to ensure the people that really needed insurance, or whether it was doing transdisciplinary research here at the university. So when I speak about my journey this evening, I have to include the period of working in industry before I joined the university. Now, my academic journey really started in 2008 while working in industry. At that time, the telecommunication company decided to outsource their information technology department, as well as the people, the solutions, and the operations of the technology to an outsourced vendor. Now, in this process of outsourcing, we've lost a lot of key knowledge in the organization. And because the people had to transfer to the outsourced vendor, a lot of the key resource actually left the outsourced vendor. A few months later, it was decided to backsource the entire function. And I recall the newly appointed CIO said it was like putting toothpaste back into the tube. At that point, the damage was done in terms of the institutional loss of knowledge. And that really created the event or the basis for my doctoral research, where I developed a knowledge management framework for information systems outsourcing. So I developed a framework consisting of multiple components, guiding organizations how to manage all of the knowledge flow in an information systems outsourcing arrangement. And typically, organizations have to consider 3 knowledge flows. You have to manage the knowledge from your organization, as you have to transfer that knowledge and share that with the outsourced vendor. The outsourced vendor holds certain knowledge, and that is probably why they were awarded the outsourcing agreement. And then together, as you work together, you create new knowledge. And if all 3 of these knowledge flows are not managed, then it can be to the detriment of the organization. So what was wonderful about this and why I wanted to share it this evening was that the organization allowed me to implement this framework in the organization. And I could experience as an industry person the value of scientific inquiry and research and the application of that within the organization. I continued, based on my research, my doctoral study, to publish conference papers, where I had the opportunity to present my work. I had a really good arrangement with my supervisors. As an industry person, I only answered questions about the data and about the context of the study, and they took all the questions about the research methodology. We published a book chapter, was also an outcome of my study, and I continue to work with academic researchers. Professor Paula Kotze and I, for example, worked on an IEEE paper where the projects that I worked, the real-world examples, the projects that I worked on, we mapped to the foundations of enterprise systems engineering with the purpose to share lessons learned. So during my career in industry, there was always this engagement with the academic world. So fast forward to September 2017, when I was appointed in the Department of Informatics. And this represented another crossing of a border, in the good sense of the word, for me. I had to learn about all the aspects of a higher education institution. And to be quite honest, I think 7 years later, I'm still learning new things about the institution. At that point, my colleagues in the industry said I went over to the dark side. And some of them till today still say that. In 2018, I received my NRF rating. I mean, I didn't know what NRF was. That was one of the things that I had to learn. I received the C2 NRF rating, and this again was an event that really showed me that I can still make a difference in the industry, but as an academic. And looking at it really from the academic side. So the C2 rating really empowered or changed my thinking in terms of a career actually in academia. So my broad research area is in information systems and organizations with a specific focus on knowledge management. So if you think about business processes or work that is executed in an organization, it relates to knowledge work. So knowledge work incorporates problem solving, critical thinking and expertise that we require in an organization to generate, process and apply information for decision making. And ultimately innovation in organizations. So this is achieved through the application of explicit and implicit knowledge. Implicit knowledge, typically knowledge that is held by employees in your organization, often associated with their expertise, area of expertise. In some instances where you have a long tenure employee, it can be institutional knowledge. And explicit knowledge that we typically find in documented documents, standard operating procedures, and, for example, software code, computer software code. So, any structured process in an organization contains knowledge work that is typically supported by human know-how, the organizational structure, because we are allocated, we are working in job roles that is assigned to us, and the outputs, and then organizational, and then information technology. So if I had to create or explain the boundaries of knowledge work in an organization, I would use this model to illustrate that. Raw data has no value. So in an organization, they have to transform the raw data to actionable wisdom, because at that level, can decisions be taken? And can we use that knowledge for innovation, and can we use that knowledge for designing new business models, for optimizing the business? So the knowledge work really deals with not just the layers, but also the processes of conversion from data to information to knowledge and to wisdom. So knowledge management fundamentally deals with all of these constructs. And this is also closely aligned with the process of research, because in effect, when we do research, we create new knowledge. And we transform the data that is collected into a certain research outcome. So the two processes from an organizational perspective and academic research is closely aligned. Now, when we consider the knowledge flows at a more detailed level, we have to look at your employees in the organization. We work in departments, or we are allocated to teams, and then you have the organization itself. So typically an employee works in an organization, and they arrive every morning with specific knowledge that is either based on what they've learned in the organization and about the organization. It can be from their academic studies, some technical competence, and it can be knowledge and skills that you can typically gain through experience. As teams and as departments work together, they share existing knowledge, and together they create new knowledge that can be applied back in the organization to create value for the organization. So these processes, the continuous process of sharing and creating knowledge fundamentally happens in 4 ways. Socialization through externalization, combination, and internalization. So if we investigate that a little bit closer, socialization is the process where an employee would share experience with others. And this typically happens when a department or a team works together, or when there's a brainstorming session, or when there's say observation or an apprenticeship, for example. And that creates knowledge in terms of individual sharing. The process of externalization is the process where knowledge is documented and it can then be shared with others. And that then becomes the basis for new knowledge. The reason is that individual knowledge is now made explicit in a form that it can be expressed and understood and internalized by other employees. And this typically happens through knowledge visualization. Now with big data datasets, we have software that assists us with knowledge visualization. Obviously written documents, although it's easier to use generative AI nowadays. And then, for example, through knowledge harvesting, which is a proactive strategy that organizations use to offboard employees. And that is typically when an employee leaves the company or when they retire. The third knowledge work process is a combination. So combination involves organizing and integrating knowledge where different types of explicit knowledge is merged. So typically here, knowledge is collected from outside the organization, and inside the organization it's then combined and processed and presented in a way that represents new knowledge. So the new knowledge can then be disseminated to the entire organization, and the employees in the organization can again internalize it and apply that knowledge. So this is typically the process that we follow when we build prototypes. The final process of knowledge creation in an organization is internalization. So internalization involves the process whereby an employee receives knowledge. Now, this is typically the process that we follow with our capstone projects here at university. We teach the theoretical principles to students. When they do their software solution, develop the software solution for the external industry client, they apply what they've learned in a real-world scenario with the intention that these application of these simulated tasks really deepen their understanding and their retention of the information that we taught at the university. In an organizational context, an example here would be certification, for example, when organizations certify their employees. So when we execute knowledge work in an organization, we don't think about, oh, now I'm using externalization, oh, now I'm using combination. Because organizations use these knowledge flows interchangeably to ensure that individual knowledge is converted into organizational knowledge. And this interchangeable process really creates that spiral that you can see visualized in the center as a continuous process through which knowledge is continuously created, expanded upon. Ultimately, innovation can be built onto that, ultimately adding value to the organization. So the process supports collaboration and innovation within an organization. So this is the frame then that I want to use this evening to share with you some examples where I have collaborated with industry partners in applying these principles and producing research outputs. So in order to illustrate the knowledge flow, I want to share 4 examples. And these 4 examples are really examples that's based on knowledge in the organizations, where we leverage the boundaries between academic research and what the organization wanted to achieve with these outputs, and that we've done through a research project. So the first example is an internalization example. And for this research paper, we were approached by a debt counseling company. Now, the purpose or the aim of this research for the debt counseling company was to improve the throughput on their website. Typically, when someone wanted to engage with a debt counsellor, they would log a request for counselling on the website. What was interesting about this collaboration was that the user was an anxious, worried and concerned person. Because at the time when you reach out to a debt counsellor, you are probably, you require support and you require help. So we defined the concept of a vulnerable user that has to engage with this human-computer interface. We used our eye tracking technology in our UX lab, and we had 10 participants that participated in the study. It was a diverse group. What was interesting was, well, scary as well, was that the youngest person that received debt counselling was 28. So we have done the study with a diverse group from 28 and above. So this is an example of what the data sets would look like. There's a heat map of the debt counselling website and then a gaze plot. If you look at the heat map on the left, you can see the data was superimposed on the site where a user would register for debt counselling. The red indicate long fixation, where they really looked at the content on the website. The yellow around it is medium fixation, and then the green lighter fixation, and then this sort of very light green that is just maybe a glance. Now you can see that there's a lot of fixation on the little form that you have to complete in the center of the screen, and then to the left there's a huge label that says get debt free, and there's text. So also there you can see fixation. So what was interesting about this study was, if you notice on the top right hand side of the screen, you have a WhatsApp button, which would have given a user a direct link into a debt counsellor engagement. But that was hardly noticed on this website. So by implementing the report that was produced as part of the study, they managed to significantly improve their throughput. And we then continued to publish a set of UX principles for designing computer interfaces for vulnerable users. Now, there is a lot of UX principles for design that can be applied when we design human-computer interfaces. What was unique for me in this study was the vulnerable user, and you will see that it was captured through very personalized comments. I need to be able to trust you. I am desperate and need help. I want to feel the human touch. And that was quite a unique finding in terms of this research. The second example is an example of socialization. So organizations that manage graduate programs have a large intake of IT graduates that would join their companies. But the question here was, what would make an IT graduate stay in your organization? So what are these key forces that would form the social bonds with your organization for those graduates to stay? Now, the philosophy of this industry partner was that graduates must want to stay. They mustn't be enticed with other mechanisms to remain in the organization. So for this study, we applied the social bond theory, and that consists of 4 aspects: commitment, involvement, attachment, and belief. And the quantitative and qualitative data was collected through a hackathon experience where these IT graduates participated in. So the quantitative data was analyzed across these 4 dimensions: attachment, involvement, belief, and commitment. And then topic modeling was used to analyze the qualitative data, also across these 4 aspects. So by integrating all of these data sets, we could publish a much improved social bond force diagram that lists a significant number of key factors that would actually drive social bonds within an organization for the IT graduates. So if you have an existing IT graduate program, this can be used as a tool to see if there's improvement, or if you want to start or implement an IT graduate program, then this would give you a very good guideline of what you should focus on in terms of IT graduate program. The third example is an externalization example. Now, we have spoken about data as a key aspect for organizations at the beginning of the lecture. But data today and the way that we generate data and big data sets is really a key enabler and a key aspect for organizations, as that provides the basis for evidence-based decision making, as well as business model optimization and innovation. Now, with the evolution of technology, we now also have knowledge in machines. Traditionally, only knowledge in people, but now if you think about predictive models, organizations also have knowledge in machines. And the question here was, how can I design a strategy that would combine the knowledge in people and the knowledge in machines for knowledge work? So we collected data in a telecommunication company, and we found that there were 4 key enablers for such a strategy. Data platform, the data management, data analytics, and then the ethos of being a data-driven organization. In the data, we could also identify several sub-enablers for each enabler, and we also defined a maturity level. So the maturity level from 1 to 5 was closely aligned with the knowledge pyramid, which I've shared earlier. Now, the model here is sort of the clean model, and this can be customized depending on your industry sector. So to show an example, here it's populated for the telecommunication company, and you'll see some specifics about the company. At the top right, where you have data management, there's data processes, and you'll see a specific reference to DMBOK, the data management body of knowledge. And this is a specific framework that this organization is using. We then use this tool to do an assessment. Because it has a maturity scale, we could, if you imagine that the green line is the target maturity across all enablers of combining knowledge in human and knowledge in machines for knowledge work. Then the red line can represent an assessment, and it can be for a team, for a department, or for the entire organization. Because it is assessed in this way, a score can be created for each enabler, and an overall score can be created. So already there's a numeric way of tracking progress if you wanted to implement the strategy, but also, because it's a maturity assessment, you can identify which areas you have to improve in to improve your maturity of your strategy. So this was implemented a few years back now in the organization, and today this organization is known for the maturity of their data practice. The final example is a combination example. So in this example, the business problem was the fact that when we implement software solutions, software development, the integration, the deployment, and the operational management it requires a set of complex skills to implement. Additionally, organizations need to do this fast. You can't take 2 years to implement. So in order to be able to implement fast, within quality and within budget, organizations implement a DevOps approach where they integrate the software teams, the developers, with the operations. Now the question is, if I have to allocate or assign a DevOps team, what would be the optimal workforce mix in such a DevOps team? Because ultimately I have to deliver fast within quality and within budget. So for this investigation, the constructs that the organization deal with are threefold. The organization has a requirement for sustainable quality delivery and to create business value. From a DevOps perspective, you require the speed, the quality, and the frequency of delivery. And you have an existing workforce. You're not starting from scratch. You have people that has been allocated already in roles, and the people already in the organization have certain capabilities. So we had to find a common language to model these three aspects so that we could then investigate the constitution of such a DevOps teams further. We decided to use stratified systems theory. This is a theory that I used very successfully while I worked in industry as well. And what made it very suitable for this specific model was that it is a framework for understanding human capability and cognitive processes, but you will see that it is closely associated with quality, time, and cost. So we have all the right words in one theory that we could apply. So stratified systems theory created a common language in which we could model this interrelationship. The second aspect was the work that had to be delivered, and whether it was a complex solution that had to be implemented, or whether it was a fairly simple or not such a complex solution that had to be implemented. So for this industry partner, there were 5 drivers of the complexity. The first is a 25% weighting allocated to the complexity of the solution. You can see process, knowledge, network, criticality. So is it a mission critical system? If the system is down, significant revenue loss in the organization, so the criticality of that system. And then the maturity level, is it a new solution that's implemented, or is it a solution that has been running for a number of years and that is quite mature? So by collecting the data behind these two concepts, we could define a generic model for the constitution of a DevOps team. So if you look at the left visualization, that is where it says the high score, that is the generic DevOps team for a complex implementation. You'll see that it is top heavy, right? They are 10% to chief expert level in the DevOps team, 40% to expert level, and then only 5% entry-level resources. So this is quite a senior team that is applied in terms of implementing a complex solution. In the middle, the visualization, this is a medium complex solution, and immediately you can see a change away to the center of the ultimate profile. So 35% requirement only at senior level. And not so many chief expert and expert levels. And then the same apply for the third generic model, which is the right hand side. And there, in that instance, you can see there's no senior chief expert roles allocated in that DevOps team. So to implement not such a complex solution, you need advanced 50% and 25% entry level DevOps candidates or employees. So if this is the generic models, then this could now be compared to actual data in the organization, because the organization knew which resources have been allocated to a complex product line, a medium product line, and a low product line. So by using the actual data, we could compare the two profiles. So if you look at product line A, which is the complex product line, you can see that the red line represents the generic profile, and the blue bars the actual resources allocated. So for a complex product line, there's a really good fit between the generic profile, what is required from the DevOps team, and what was actually allocated. There's a small deficit for advanced level resources, but a really good fit in general. Looking at product line B, which is a medium complex product line, we can now see a different picture. The red line is the generic profile, and now you can see a significant deficit at entry level and advanced level resources allocated to the DevOps team, but you can see an over allocation at expert level. So we may argue that an expert can actually carry the deficit at an advanced or an entry level. But the more senior a resource is, the more expensive they are. So if we have to manage quality, cost, and speed of delivery, then that would be a consideration to say, I don't need such an expensive structure. I can deliver a medium complex product line by allocating more advanced resources into that DevOps team. And then you can see a similar picture for product line C, which is not a complex product line. And there is a significant deficit at the entry level and advanced level role. So this work was presented. I presented it at a conference and it won the Best Paper Award. So we were then invited to extend our work to a journal paper. And earlier this year, we managed to publish the journal paper. So another example of collaboration with industry through transdisciplinary research is commercialization. So here, I co-supervised a student in health sciences. She's a lecturer, a radiology lecturer in the health sciences faculty here at the University of Pretoria. And her aim of her study was to develop a mobile application for pregnant radiographers to monitor and manage the exposure, the radium exposure for the fetus. As part of the PhD study, the prototype was developed. So she followed several cycles of design science research and design thinking to get to what you can see visualized here. Through a partnership with industry and funding that she obtained, our industry partner actually created a beautiful a brand. It's called Prigidose, and I've spoken to her earlier this week. She is actually in the process of working with the IP unit and the legal unit here at the university to commercialize this mobile application. She presented this work in Japan earlier, and she won this Cousins Award for this work. And then finally, an example of the implication or the application of transdisciplinary research is really to use it as a foundation for change. Ultimately, if we want to influence policy, for example, or the way in which we do things, we have to look at evidence-based insights analysis. So it must support informed decision-making, because then you can use it as a model to impact society, or to impact a framework, a regulatory framework that you want to implement. So the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Information Management, this is one of the top journals in our field of study, invited us three lecturers in the Department of Informatics, myself, Professor Machtel Mathieu, and Professor Maria Hatting, to participate in this project. They invited 56 inputs across the world, and these teams that provided the input consisted of policymakers, practitioners, as well as academics. The data was then, the inputs from all of these 56 inputs were collated, and earlier this year, the 4D model for manifesting academic research impact was published. So it consists of the 4Ds: design, deliver, disseminate, and demonstrate. And you'll see that the last step of the 4D model talks to measuring the impact of your research in society, or the impact of that research, but also what are the changes that you have achieved through actually implementing your research. This was a very exciting project to work with, and to see the different perspectives from all these 56 participants. So I think the question now is, so what? What do we do with all of this knowledge creation in organizations, working together with organizations to make a difference? How do we sort of structure this in a reusable model? So I started by looking at the two partners. And the two partners have very different capabilities. As a researcher at the university, we have very different expertise and targets and objectives of what we have to achieve here, ultimately working with students. an organization has different drivers, different objectives, different priorities in terms of what they have to deliver. So the question is, how do we bring this together? How do we leverage the different aspects and the attributes of these two partners for transdisciplinary research? So typically when we think about research, it was reflected through a linear model. So there's a research problem, and you apply it in industry and it makes a difference. So it is a single execution line. Or the reverse linear research model, where you start out with a business problem and through a single line again you execute the research and you solve that business problem. So Professor Ben Schneiderman, he holds an honorary doctorate from the Department of Informatics, published his book, The New ABCs of Research, and he suggested a different model. He suggested a much more cyclical relationship between applied research and basic research. This cycle is embedded in a development frame that is the area in which research projects are identified and executed. And that again is within a frame of production and operations, and that is where you make a difference with the research problem that you've set out to do. What is positive about this model is that it provides the basis for continuous improvement. And if you think about the papers or the models that we could publish through our transdisciplinary research, it can be optimized and it can be reused continuously. So this, a much more flexible model and a continuous engagement between the different layers of the research model. So if I then have to move the two partners closer together, and if we can leverage the unique aspects of each of these partners for transdisciplinary research, then it is a win-win for both parties. Because from an academic perspective, I have an opportunity to work with real-world scenarios. I have an opportunity to publish my research, to learn through this experience, to make sure that what I teach is relevant in industry, that graduates are work-ready, and apart from influencing policies, so we can write white papers and popular press papers in terms of the outputs. From an organizational perspective, I think a big advantage is that they have a scientific investigation, they have a scientific basis that they can use and reuse. It's reusable experiments that can be repeated to optimize their business models or to improve processes or to optimize human-computer interfaces, whatever the objective is for the organization. So by overlapping these unique capabilities, the output, the crafting of futures is a unique and a win-win output for both of these parties. One lesson that we've learned that I want to share with you is that transdisciplinary research is not a one-size-fits-all. I've used the examples where I worked with different organizations. And the reason that it's not a one-size-fits-all is that it integrates knowledge, methods, and perspectives from multiple disciplines. And you have multiple role players. You have stakeholders in an organization, and you've got academic stakeholders. So it demands a different approach, and it's an adaptive approach in working together. So this flexible, adaptive approach must be agile, and you need to tailor methods. I think if you try to force-fit known models, it will be extremely difficult. You have to be agile, and you have to be look at the context and be flexible in terms of applying and changing and updating and thinking about new models. If we look to the future, Prof Sunil mentioned sustainability. Today, organizations there's a requirement to also include sustainability in strategic objectives of organizations, and by sustainability I mean economic sustainability, social sustainability, as well as environmental sustainability. So moving forward, I want to focus on still our knowledge work frame, but now its application in digital decarbonization, and then specific, well, it's closely related with green information technology, and then within this domain, I've already identified 2 channels where there is great research opportunity and collaboration with industry, and that is dark data management and data gravity management. And I have already started to investigate and to identify potential partners. Now, next week I've been invited to, somewhere this news got out, so I've been invited to speak at the CXO series, and the topic is Dark Data Killing the Planet, CXO Strategies for Digital Decarbonization. Why am I raising this here? Because at the CXO series that's hosted by Foresight, it's attended by all C-level leaders. And the purpose of the CXO series is to share knowledge to enable them to solve business challenges. So it is the ideal audience to make contact with industry partners and to start these conversations and perhaps to then identify future opportunities. So to conclude, I think the future of academic and industry partnerships in transdisciplinary research is really bright. And I can talk from experience that I've seen the impact we are able to achieve when we work together, to leverage the unique capabilities of these 2 partners in delivering research outputs together. Now, I've spoken a lot about partnership and about collaboration and what we should achieve. So none of this is possible if you don't have the support structures around you. So I would like just to take this opportunity to acknowledge some of these people around me that assisted me in my journey. Firstly, I have my parents, and they live in Cape Town. My dad is 90 years old and my mother 86. My dad was very upset because he used to walk 6 kilometers a day, and now the 2 of them can only manage 2 kilometers a day. So obviously they couldn't travel here this evening to be here, but I have to acknowledge them because they made a lot of sacrifice, especially when I studied computer science long ago now, especially financial as well, you know, to enable me to study. And that was the foundation of why I can stand here today. And then my one inspiration, my daughter, she's in Seoul in South Korea. So she also couldn't travel to be here. She's busy with her doctorate while she is teaching in Seoul. It's actually her fault that I did a tandem skydive jump that I showed you right in the beginning, because she used reverse psychology. She said, but you told us that we can achieve anything, so what is your problem? Why are you not doing this? I think the open question is, would I do it again? Then my family here, husband Andre, Stefan, my son, and daughter-in-law Celeste. Thank you so much for your inspiration and motivation, and especially your patience when I force you to listen to me when I have thought of a new research idea. Stefan, thank you for all your support with my R code when I've run out of troubleshooting ideas, and Celeste, as a UX designer, I must tell you, my research papers have the most beautiful images in it. Then to the Department of Informatics. It is an unbelievable privilege to be part of such an inspiring team, and that is committed to what we have to achieve here at the University of Pretoria. Then faculty members and colleagues, and specifically Professor Karina de Villiers. Karina made a huge impact in helping me crossing the border into the academic world. When Professor Neil asked me in the interview, so which modules can you teach? I didn't even have an idea what the module was at that point, but I think I wing it. And Karina really helped me to settle in and to make sense of the academic world. EBIT faculty, Prof Hanlie, thank you so much for empowering us to expand our borders, and not just empowering us, but to actually challenge us to expand our borders. Thank you so much for that. Then our industry partners. I see you here in the audience. What an honor for me that you are here this evening. Thank you so much for the way that we can work together, for your support and for your commitment, for your large data sets. That always makes a researcher very happy. And just from what I can learn from you. So thank you very much for that. Then in May this year, during the autumn graduation, I had the unbelievable privilege to introduce Stefan when he received his doctoral degree. So Prof Alta, thank you so much that I could introduce him. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. As a supervisor, you allowed me that privilege. And then Professor Loretta Ferris that allowed me to say, Madame Vice Principal, I introduced to you my son, Stefan Smuts. So that was a very special moment. Thank you so much for that. So I would like to invite you, whether you are a faculty member, whether you are an industry partner, a colleague, to step over that boundary and to cross that border. Because by leveraging the different skills and the different knowledge that is held in these different parties that work together, we can craft much better futures together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof Hanlie, for a very informative lecture on what I would much rather entitle Matchmaking, Knowledge and Impact. Because I think in what you told us tonight, that's what a matchmaker does. Takes two or more, well, hopefully normally two parties, but more in your case, parties that doesn't really know each other, that doesn't know that there's a future for them together, and matching them up, understanding their background, their beliefs, everything, and making sure that they've got a hopefully lifelong relationship. So I think you do very good matchmaking. I got to know Prof Hanlie in 2017 when she started here, and I must say, I try to not use too many words, but innovative, active, opportunity-seeking, and very specifically joyful academic HOD and school chair these days. It's an absolute pleasure to have you around because you are actively developing knowledge, but also not just generating and stacking the stuff somewhere in a storeroom, but actually making sure that it empowers your students and industry. Everybody gains from that. From the bit that I've learned of informatics, much more in the last 2 years, I actually think it's one of the most transdisciplinary areas that we've got. Because if you look at the examples that you gave and some of the other work that's being done, I think you guys will be dead if you are not doing transdisciplinary work, because that's actually the nature of it. And it's impact-intensive actions that makes a difference. Also the focus on development and crafting of new preferred futures for your students and for industry. Because we can actually continue on our projected and our past futures and die like a dinosaur because nobody needs us or wants us or so, or do what you are doing and crafting probable and preferred futures that actually generate new life and make sure that industries can continue and grow, but very importantly again that your students and your staff can grow. So important to have the balance in that. So thank you for your innovative and thought-provoking manner in managing and research and teaching and making sure that we've got a real impact that the university, the faculty, the department and you can show in what you are doing. I really believe that you've got many more blessed years of crafting new features and new careers and new possibilities for many of you that sit over here tonight and our other new students and new industry partners. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank Prof Sunil for participating here tonight, and in this inaugural address. I would like to thank our EBIT team, faculty manager for Managa, for Suzanne, for Tabu, while we've got various other things behind the scenes and make sure that this is a possibility. I would like to thank each and every one of you that's here tonight. I always say one must realize that there's many other things that one can do on a Thursday evening. However, I don't think any of those will match the opportunity that you had tonight to get your mind expanded. And I trust that was a good opportunity. We've got one remaining inaugural lecture in EBIT for this year, and you will see the emails on that. There's some of our sister faculties also, and we also always appreciate your interest and input into these events. With that, please join us for refreshments now in the foyer area, and please stand and remain standing while the procession leaves the hall. I hope you've got a good and safe evening.